And 25 seconds to play. End zone throw. Touchdown Lions! Calvin Johnson!
Hello everyone, Michigan 1777 here today, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the PlayStation Neo, my personal opinions, and why I think Sony overall is just having the idea to put out a new console. I'm just going to start off right away and say, I am all for this PlayStation Neo. I know a lot of people are really mad about it, and they're probably going to be raving about it in the comments, if I even get enough comments, but I think for the most part that the idea of having a new console is intriguing and very much a positive thing. What I don't think people realize is when the PlayStation Neo comes out, the PlayStation 4 is going to drop in price. It's that simple. Sony's going to take over this console market. I think Microsoft at this point knows it, which is why they introduced PC integration in the Xbox One. But I think overall Sony is planning on putting the PlayStation Neo out because, it's just the right thing to do. They promised us, 1080p, 60 frames per second gaming, 4K output on the PlayStation 4, and we didn't get any of that. I feel like the PlayStation 4 was a bit rushed out. Rushed, quote unquote. I'll explain why I'm putting a quote unquote there in just a few. But overall, I think the PlayStation 4 is a great console. It's a good console. But the problem is, like I said, they didn't give us what we promised, or what they promised. The PlayStation Neo's specs overall are just going to be better. And I have the chart right here of what the original versus the Neo is. I'll cover it real quickly. The original PlayStation CPU, it's 8 oh my gosh, I was about to say Jaguar. Thank you, Red Gaming Tech. 8 Jaguar cores at 1.6 gigahertz, and the Neo is 8 Jaguar cores at 2.1 gigahertz. So obviously clock speeds up, and being that it's probably going to be newer, I guess, a newer form of Jaguar core, we're going to be seeing a little bit more efficiency out of them as well. For the GPU, we're getting, the original had an AMD GCN with 18 compute units at 800 megahertz, and the new one has an improved AMD GCN with 36 compute units at 911 megahertz, which is twice the compute units and a higher clock speed. And the RAM is 8 gigs of GDDR5 at 176 gigabytes per second on the original, and 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 at 218 gigabytes per second on the Neo, which is another upclock. Out of all these specs, honestly, I could say the most debatable one might be the RAM. I think they could probably put more RAM in the console just for texture streaming and a bunch of other stuff, since the operating system of the PlayStation 4 takes 4 gigs of RAM already, and developers have already complained enough saying the CPU is the bottleneck, but we've already used all of our RAM's resources basically. So I think an increase in RAM would be a great idea. But yeah, what these specs are promising, it's not 4K. We're not going to be seeing native 4K gaming at 60 frames per second like some people blow this out of the water, and I'm like, it's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. We are going to be seeing 4K upscaling. We're going to be seeing the potential for 4K Blu-ray, which, yes, at last, we won't have to spend $300 on a Blu-ray player that only does Blu-ray. And I think, overall, the new Neo is going to offer us the opportunity to play 1080p 60 frames per second with upscaling to 4K. For all those people that don't know, the 4K standard, or it's not even 4K, it's Ultra HD. I'm not going to go into technicality on all that, but it's called 4K, but it's not. Perfect 4:1 pixel ratio from 1080p, which is fantastic. So your upscaling is going to be perfect. There's not going to be any issues, and it's just going to work out. But what I think this PlayStation is going to be is it's going to be the medium, the center of the medium of entertainment center. We're going to have 4K Blu-rays. We're going to have 4K streaming on Netflix. We're going to have 4K upscaling with games, and it's going to allow a lot of people to say, "Hey, 4K TV. I have a reason to use it now." I think this is a possible marketing technique from Sony as well. By opening themselves up to 4K, it's the potential for them to sell more 4K TVs. Because, to be honest with you, if you go to a Best Buy or any tech store anymore, they aren't really selling high quality 1080p TVs anymore. Yeah, you can get them for cheap, but the sound quality is garbage. You pretty much have to buy a sound bar. The picture image, I mean, it's good. They're way better than they were 10 years ago. But the overall quality of the TV is just not there. I have a Sony Bravia from 2006, or at least my parents do. It's got the long sound bar on the bottom that came with it. It just looks good. It's clean, and the picture's not the best, obviously, but the sound bar works perfectly. You're not going to find a sound bar like that on any TVs anymore. But they're starting to introduce more sound quality. I know the LG OLED TVs, the organic LED TVs, I'm not going to go into far depth with this, but they're having sounds designed by Harman Kardon. Samsung's offering better speakers in their TVs now, and because the 4K panel itself is getting cheaper to build, cheaper to make, we're going to start seeing better audio quality as well out of the TVs. But overall, I mean, the Neo is just offering us a 1080p 60 frames per second gaming experience while also allowing us to play or watch 4K Blu-rays, 4K streaming on Netflix, or whatever the heck we want to stream. YouTube, 4K YouTube. People that say there's no 4K content, just go to YouTube. Every other video I watch anymore on reviews or anything else has 4K content, or it's recorded in 4K. So I'm at that point where people say, "Oh, there's no 4K content." I think it's just an excuse to say don't buy a 4K TV. They're cheap now. You can go and get a Hisense refurbished TV for $350, 50 inches, at Walmart, and it's 4K, 120 hertz panel. That's what I'm doing. So overall, I need to exaggerate on 1.2, and I don't think people think about it, but I want to play games at 60 frames per second, standard. 1080p, 60 frames per second. I don't want 30 frames anymore. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can't tell the difference between 30 and 60 frames. 30 frames is it's more than enough. It's cinematic. No, it's not. It's old. We've been using 30 frames for too long now, and I'm to that point where, I got a new laptop when I went to college. I was playing Skyrim, only 720p, but 60 frames. And after running the PS3 version at sub 30, man, it's mind-blowing how I cannot go back to 30 frames. I tried playing Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, a bunch of other games, and I can't play it anymore because 60 frames just spoiled me. I get headaches playing in 30 frames anymore, eye strain, everything else, and I just feel like my overall reaction time in 30 frame per second games is just not as good. I played Battlefield, Battlefront, NBA 2K, Madden, The Last of Us Remastered, the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, a bunch of games at 60 frames now, and I can't go back to 30. It's just not there. And with all these post-processing effects that these developers are putting into their games with a bunch of lens flare, God rays, high dynamic, like all of this stuff that they're adding in is just visually, it's stimulating. But only at 30 frames, you don't get that full experience of what the developer wants you to see. And the only way you can do that currently is if you own a high-end PC, which we don't. So the Neo will offer us the opportunity to, see 1080p 60 frames the way that developers want us to see a game. So, overall, I think in large part Sony is just putting this console out because in 2011, people were still recovering from the 2008 economy issue. As I mentioned before, really early on, I think that the economy collapse in 2008 hurt the console market because 2008, 2009, 2010, people are still recovering from what ended up happening. People are recovering their finances. Companies like Sony and Microsoft were struggling. Well, they weren't struggling, but they know people weren't going to buy a new console at that point. The PlayStation 4 and Xbox One should have came out in 2011. This is 2011 hardware, and they would have been more than okay. And having a new console from 2011 till 2016 or 17, I mean, that's 5 years, 6 years, about what we were expecting. But by putting these out in 2013, people are getting frustrated over hardware that probably should have been put out in 2011. So, overall, I think the Neo just needs to be. It needs to be a thing. I want to see 60 frames per second consistently. I also want to see 120 hertz consistently when the PlayStation Virtual Reality comes out. And overall, I'm looking forward to the Neo. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to experience 4K on the market with 4K Blu-ray player, and using it as a medium of entertainment is just going to be great. So yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed my video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, you know, everything else, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much.